Tom Hoffman with Baltimore Media, coming to you from Forrester's Customer Experience Forum in Los Angeles. And I'm joined today by Kerry Bodine, Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, and also the co-author of Outside In. And today, Kerry and I will be talking about the business value of taking an outside-in perspective. Kerry, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure, I'm really happy to be here.
And great job today with the keynote.
Thank you very much.
So, during the keynote today, you talked about how there's a customer experience pyramid with three sides to it. Addressing customer needs, making sure that the experience is easy for customers, and that it's also enjoyable.
Right.
And I'm wondering, I don't know if there's a way to look at this in general perspective, but do companies often fall short in addressing one side of the pyramid?
Yeah, I think that enjoyability piece is really difficult for a lot of companies. I get questions all the time. Well, we're a bank. Are we really supposed to be enjoyable to do business with? And when we talk about enjoyability, we're not talking about having your customers skip around with a giant grin on their face. What we're really talking about with enjoyability is connecting with your customers on a more personal or emotional level and meeting those emotional needs that we all bring to the experiences that we have in our organizations. So I think that's the one that's hardest for companies because they're not really in this mindset. They're not used to really reaching out and thinking about that emotional side of the equation. It kind of seems sometimes at odds with our harder business models, but it's really important. On the flip side of that, we see some companies that try and skip over the first two layers of the customer experience pyramid, and they say, we just want to go right for delighting our customers and having this enjoyable experience. And that can also be a pitfall because really you have to meet your customers' needs or they're not going to do business with you.
Sure. So for companies that are struggling with that first side of it, on the emotional side, do you have recommendations as to starting points they might be able to work on, to think more about, and act on the emotional side?
Yeah, absolutely. In the keynote today, I talked a lot about creating empathy. And again, I know it sounds like this touchy-feely thing, but empathy is really the key to creating customer experiences that matter. And empathy is really, at a basic level, just about putting yourselves in your customer's shoes and understanding really what it's like to be a customer of your own company. And so there's a lot of different things that companies can do. They can double jack into the call center and listen to customer calls. They can fill out their own forms to see how difficult and confusing they are. Going out to your customers' homes or their offices, wherever it is that they're doing business, and just talking with them and having a one-on-one conversation like we're doing now. It's a level of insight that you're never going to be able to get from a survey or a focus group.
A lot more intimate details.
Exactly. And it's got to be balanced with all of that quantitative data that we've got. That's still really important. We can't rely on that alone to develop empathy with our customers.
You would also talk during the keynote about Forrester's annual customer experience index.
Right.
And as part of that, you mentioned that overall, most companies fare or evaluated as mediocre at best.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why that is and what the key inhibitors are.
Oh gosh, there are honestly so many. I mean, this whole customer experience thing, this new approach of putting customers at the center of the business, this really goes against decades and decades of business and management philosophy and practices. So we're really having to get organizations to think in completely new ways. And I think one of the biggest barriers is just the silos that we operate in. And even when you're looking at specific customer interactions, you've got one group focusing on call center interactions, another group focusing on the website, another group, even though it's digital, looking at mobile or tablet applications, another group looking at the store. And we find that oftentimes these people don't talk to each other. They don't really know what work the other one's doing, and they also don't have this holistic view of what the customer sees and what that holistic customer experience is as the customers, of course, cross all of those different channels.
Sure.
I think that's one of the biggest barriers, that silo.
So it depends on the company and the culture too, I would imagine, but do you have to look at, do you sometimes recommend if companies need someone who can orchestrate all that between the different departments?
Yeah, we're seeing a big increase in the number of chief customer officers that are out there in the world, and this is a relatively new role. You guys have been talking about it, but it's essentially someone who can help make all of those connections between the different parts of the organization. It's a really challenging role, but yeah, someone's got to get all of them talking.
You would also talk during the keynote about different ways to measure the business value of customer experience.
Right.
And I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about how companies might be able to go about measuring the potentially the incremental revenues that can result from customer experience?
Sure. Well, that actually ties back to our customer experience index. So every year we ask a large number of consumers about the companies that they've done business with recently, and we ask them, okay, these companies you've worked with, how well did they meet your needs? How easy was it to work with them, and how enjoyable was it? And that's where we come up with that score. So we actually ask them, in addition to those questions about perceptions, we also ask them 3 questions related to loyalty. So we find that there is a strong correlation between the customer experience index scores and these 3 loyalty measures. Essentially, it's repeat purchases, word of mouth, and then churn. And so when you look at those 3 factors, you're able to build a really robust financial model that looks at what the impact of loyalty and therefore customer experience is. So I think that's a really easy way that really most people in an organization can understand about what the impact of customer experience is. And it's about understanding that connection between customer experience and loyalty.
I know that you work with a lot of different companies in different industries, and each one has different challenges that they're wrestling with.
Sure.
But I don't know if there are any commonalities that you're seeing in terms of the top customer experience challenges that they're trying to work with.
I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out what the heck to do with all these metrics they're collecting. So they're starting to measure Net Promoter Score. Maybe they're using Forrester's Customer Experience Index or something else, and they're trying to figure out how do we, first of all, just manage all of these metrics, collect all the data, and make sense of it, and then how do we figure out what to actually do with it? We talked about in the keynote how we're not in the information age anymore, we're in the age of the customer, but all that information is still here. It's all coming at us, and so it's really, that's a big challenge.
Absolutely. Well, Kerry, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me here on the hot seat. Thanks.